Good afternoon. Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. I'm Justin Coffin. Across from me, Joe Danier. We got BJ in the back. We are live down here at Youngstown Studios, August 22nd, 2024. We, at the lead off of the show, if you're listening to this on audio, you're not going to be able to hear it. But at the beginning of the show, we put up our favorite college football names of 2024. So since I did that to start, I'm going to just lead off with those. Joe, do you have any favorites off of that list? I'll put the offensive team back up there. General Booty is a big favorite of people. I like DeColdis Crawford. He was a wide receiver at Nebraska, transferred to Louisiana Tech. Any names stick out on that list to you?
Well, the 5-year-old in me likes General Booty.
Yeah.
It's got to be a fan favorite.
Yeah, and if you got General Booty, who's snapping him the ball? But Parker Titsworth. I mean,
you can't beat that combination.
So good. So that's some of the best offensive team names. Here's some of the best defensive team names. You got two Buckeyes on that list. You got Sonny Styles. That's a pretty cool name. And you got Hero Canoe for Ohio State. Any names on there? And I have a personal favorite on this one. Do you have any favorites that stick out to you on that list?
I don't know, man. The side of the ball is a little boring.
I don't know. There's two. A defensive back out of Central Arkansas, Dude Person, and then a cornerback out of Rice. Mobility is that's a good one. That one's kind of my favorite. Yeah. So I just thought we'd do something fun to lead off the show, but I do want to thank you because as of yesterday, yesterday was, I believe, our 4th anniversary of doing this show. So we have been doing this. So as most people know, I used to be a teacher, an elementary teacher, and a high school basketball coach. And during COVID, I kind of hit the reset button, went with a career change. This is not my full-time gig. This is definitely a fun hobby, but it's become more of a hobby than anything. It's given me a nice outlet to talk sports and to really BS about life in general. So I want to thank you for that because this is a fun outlet and we do a lot of really cool stuff down here at Youngstown
Think
Studio.
of how much stuff happened because of COVID. So we blame COVID for a lot of the negative side, but this probably wouldn't have happened if it weren't for the whatever.
No doubt. Yeah.
And we became friends because I gave you COVID first.
Yeah.
So you got to experience.
Yeah. We're not social distancing.
An inch away from death because of me.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think we even did one show where you were going on a vacation around like Thanksgiving and you wore the full Bane mask just to make sure you're like, I am not ruining this vacation. I am not getting sick. I'm going. But yeah, we've had some fun times down here. So,
well, dickheads were super mean to me on some of my travels. Like this one time I was at a campground and I was doing laundry middle of the night. It was probably like midnight or something like that. And I put some clothes in the washer and then I went back to get my clothes out of the washer and put them in the dryer. And there were like tons of people in here. And I was like, shit, I don't have a mask. These people are going to freaking torch me and drag me through the city streets. So I wrapped a beach towel around my head and they still kicked me out. So from that point on, I never went anywhere without my armor.
Like, and that seems so long ago. Like 4 years really isn't that long. It's literally the time between a presidential race and Olympics, whatever you want to say, a leap year. But there's been a lot can happen in 4 years and it's been mostly good, especially on the podcast side down here. So I was going through and I couldn't tell you how many episodes for a while, up to like 125 I was counting. And then I just kind of like lost, I kept tracking them, but I think we've done just this show alone, almost 300 shows. So that's pretty crazy over the course of 4 years. You know, you figure 52 weeks a year. If you do one show a week, you know, you're still in the 200 range. So
have you ever watched an early episode of you to compare? How, really? You do it?
Well, like, okay. So what I used to do is I don't rewatch the shows. I don't re-listen to them, but every now and then I'll go back and critique, and I'll watch like 5 minutes or listen to 5 minutes, and just to hear, like, oh, I could say that better, I could do that better. So I definitely critique myself, but I don't go back and rewatch the whole show. But from then to now, like if I went back and watched, I know it would be way worse back then, because just like anything else, you figure it out as you're going, and you hopefully get better as you're do it more. So,
So the most humbling thing ever is, like, I started doing radio in 2007.
Yeah.
And I'll go back and watch like some of the early recordings of me trying to get in front of a microphone and do it the right way.
Yeah.
And it sounds like if you were given a script, right, and your captors who were holding you hostage said, read this and be authentic.
Yeah.
It sounded like I was about to lose my life, and I didn't really want to be reading this, and I was resisting the deal. I feel so uncomfortable. I cannot believe they let me on the radio after the first couple episodes, because it was so bad.
Well, really, you go to college and stuff, and you learn you learn how to do something, but it doesn't teach you that. And you have to apply it. You have to do it, like just speaking in public, whatever it might be. Like, no one the first time, unless you're an absolute natural, which is less than 1% of the population at any given skill. But the more you practice, the more you do something, the better you're going to get at it. Some people might just, it's just like playing in the NFL. If you don't have that ingrained height, weight, speed, you're not going to make it there. But you could maybe get to a lower level and be really good at it, but you just might not make it to the top level because maybe that's not ingrained. However, with like stuff like this, it's like the more and more you do it, the better you get. And I might not have the most beautiful radio voice like some people, but I think the more and more you do it, the better you get at crafting statements or asking questions. And that's what I've noticed I've got better at, is just being a listener, especially when we have guests on, and just hear their stories. Like, ask 5 questions and let them talk the rest of the time. That to me makes for good podcasting, makes for good content. And hopefully we've brought some entertainment to some people out there. So
in entertainment, I'm talking like music, actors, comedians. They have to eat shit for about a decade before anybody takes them serious, because it does take that time. So you got another 6 years of eating shit.
Well, and someone said, isn't it like you have to do something for like 10,000 hours to become an expert or like a superstar at that thing? So, maybe I never get there, and I'm very okay with that. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and I think that's half the battle too. So
I was just driving by earlier today, and one of my favorite rehearsal spots is right on the side of the building by the parking meters over here.
What are you rehearsing for?
Speeches or whatever I'm trying to do.
Okay.
Like, I'll go outside where there's nobody around, and I'll face an invisible stage.
Okay.
And I'll go through the lines and the entire speech over and over and, over again. And I swear that one spot of this building needs to be memorialized as where I eat, the most humble pie, and how terribly I suck when I start to do something.
Yeah.
But it just takes that repetition over and over again before you lose like sort of the human element. Like, we all make mistakes. We all stumble on our words and whatever. But, is the goal then to be polished so people don't see your imperfections? Or you're like, this is me, I'm just going to lay it all out on the line? Well,
and I think because what down here, for people that don't know, we do this live. So if we make a mistake, we got to own it, and that's part of the fun, because, if you know what you're talking about, you come off more fluently, you come off more intelligent. But sometimes when you're bullshitting, it doesn't come off quite as smooth.
Do you ever meet like the ugly dude, but has so much confidence that he gets girls, and you're like, dude, it is not about looks. Absolutely not about looks.
It's a little about luck.
It's not. I know some ugly dudes that get girls that they have 100% confidence and they pull it off.
That's true.
It's everything.
That is very, very true. And I totally agree. I think confidence and, just your mindset in general is so huge. And that's true with anything you do. Like,
I have a Mickey Mouse voice and my laugh is annoying. And
I
they
know.
let me on the radio for 15 years.
Yeah. And you do a hell of a job. I actually think, because I've heard you on the radio before on 570, I feel like you have a different radio voice than when we podcast.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like here you're more like, your voice is great either way, but I feel like here you're more relaxed and you're more like comfortable, but there,
dude, they don't let me do this.
That's true. So do any radio hosts at I guarantee radio hosts though at like certain networks can drink on air. You don't think so?
I think they do. Absolutely. Well, no, I think they've upped the ante. I think there's cocaine and maybe some meth involved.
We're going to take another short break. We'll be back. We'll be back after these messages.
But and that's the thing. Like, if you get to know some of these personalities off camera versus when they're on, totally different people.
Yeah,
like,
I
they
agree.
Put on the act. Like, you and I have always been just who we are.
Yeah.
Just happen to be in front of a microphone. But there's some real fakeness in order to sell brand like that.
And part of that's understandable. Like, we've had a ton of the local media personalities here, whether it be news, sports, weather, whatever it might be. And they're doing their job. So I understand that. But like, when you get them off camera and look, like, it's kind of nice because you can have like a non-scripted conversation with them too. Which
do you think Joe Buck's annoying in person?
I've never met Joe Buck. Do you think so?
Do you think that?
I bet he's all right. You're not a big Joe Buck guy.
He's a dick.
I just don't think he's that bad. I don't think he's that bad.
The one dude who talks like this during I forget his name.
Without dropping a name.
Yeah.
Without name dropping a local, let's just call a media member. And I'm not going to give a pronoun either. So keep people guessing. There is one person that absolutely 100% changes their voice when they are doing their on-air shtick gig.
Come on, let's be controversial.
Nope.
Say the name.
Nope. I'm not even going to tell you the network. So I'm not going to tell you if it's a man, female, news, sports.
Does he wear glasses?
I don't know.
Let's play guess who. Like,
nope.
Is he a white guy? Is he a white guy?
Yeah, he's a white guy.
All right, he's a white guy. We got it narrowed down.
Oh, I said he, so yeah.
Yes, it's a white guy.
All right, we're done. We're done. We're moving on. We're moving on. So anyway,
trickery.
Yeah. Joe's, I wouldn't last too long in a torture chamber. Let's just say that. So let's switch gears. Let's actually get into a little bit of sports here. We are going to talk about totally random topics as we always do, but we're going to start with the Cleveland Browns to kick off things. And a lot of people have been talking about the first two preseason games. I saw the list of players not playing last week against. So the first game, they played the Packers. Last week, who'd they play last week? I don't even remember. But
Vikings?
The Vikings, yeah. They did the inter squad practice during the week. So they played the Vikings last week. The Browns listed like 42 players. Their top like 42 players weren't even playing in the game. So they had a couple like back end of the roster, second, third string guys that might be fighting for a spot playing, like Devin Bush I saw out there. But besides one or two guys, Shelby Harris maybe, not many people were playing. So many people make a big deal about the preseason. And I just want to say, like, if you're watching this graphic, the preseason doesn't matter. It's the goofy
100%.
stepbrother that shouldn't be around. And I know right now there's 3 preseason games. I think pretty soon you're going to see either 2 or only 1 preseason games because it just doesn't matter. And I hate to say it doesn't matter because there are those undrafted free agents, those late round draft picks, these veteran guys that are maybe trying to hold on that are fighting for spots. But training camp is so long. And if those guys are fighting for a spot and showing enough in those practices, and then maybe like the Browns and the Vikings did this week, bring in those two teams and you're competing, you're going 1-on-1 or 7-on-7 or 11-on-11 versus your best and their best in a controlled environment where you're not going to get guys hurt or severely injured for the year. Will injuries happen? Probably, but it's a controlled environment and you're not going to see those besides like a freak injury, something crazy. So what's your thoughts on the preseason in the NFL?
The only thing I don't like about it is like you get a real bad beat on someone because they're not going against the ones. Like, so if you had to take a DTR and put him in a real game versus the ones, he's not going to do as well as the twos that he performed during the preseason.
That's fair.
So it gives you sort of like a weird, perspective on how they'll do in a real world deal. So I'm thinking if you took a like the Minnesota where you're ones versus ones and you swap a single player into that same ones offense, you get a little bit more data from that player.
That's true. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, don't make a big deal about the actual games. It's like, let's see how it plays out on the field in competition, in scrimmage versus, maybe the Browns ones versus the Browns offense versus the Browns defense, 1-on-1s or ones versus twos or twos versus ones, whatever it might be.
Do you think like when they have like sort of at training camp, when the defense plays against the offense, do you think they're as hardcore as when the Vikings defense plays against the offense?
No, because it's your own teammates. I think there are times when you're going best on best, Browns versus Browns, when they probably will ratchet it up. But I think when you see another colored jersey and another, players across from you that aren't your brothers on your same team, it's like you're going to go a little bit harder. I think that's just natural instinct. Now, for those guys at the back end of the roster that are trying to make the team, make a statement, like have everyone see what they're doing, they might go just as hard. But like you said, it's like if you're on the third string and you're playing like the third string, it's like, okay, maybe you're doing really well against your own third string or the other team's third string, but what would you do against that team's starters?
Right.
So it's so hard to quantify the preseason. And part of me is just like, just get through camp, get the work in you want to do. Like college has no preseason, and they literally, some of the best games of the season are week 1 or week 2. So you're just thrown right in the fire. Like Georgia and Clemson play week 1. Those two teams are going to be, Georgia's the number 1 team. Clemson's probably like 12 or 13. Those two teams are thrown right in the fire week 1. They have no preseason. It's like they're scrimmaging themselves. First time they see a team in another uniform might be one of their toughest games all year. So it is what it is. Like when the Browns roll it out there against the Cowboys, it's best on best for 60 minutes, not messing around. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just someone that can't stand the preseason. So I'm hoping
I'm sure it's super helpful for the the individual franchises to be able to get data on some of these players.
Yeah.
But for the fans, I would not put stock into it.
It is not a viable product. And I don't know what those games cost if they're like in the season ticket package or whatever, but the fans should not be charged for the product that is being put on the field.
It totally is in the package, and it sucks because it's the same price as any other game.
Are you serious?
It is.
Okay, so that to me is like a major. That's not okay. That's not okay.
The only game that ever made sense is when they played Chicago is a different game in the preseason, because I can remember every one of those games being competitive, and I got way more information from that. Every other game was dog shit. Like there was nothing to gain from it.
So here's just my solution. Here's what I think. And the coaches can play their ones if they want. They can play their twos if they want. It's their team. It's their choice. But from a pricing perspective, what the NFL is just a cash cow. And I get they're not going to want to give up money. But what they should do is charge like a spring game in college football. Charge $5 or $10 maybe to get in. any seat, just general admission, whatever. If you have season tickets and those are your tickets, whatever. But charge $5, $10, let anybody in. Those people that normally maybe can't afford to go to a game can go. And are you going to see the best game? Probably not. But you get to go. You get to experience the game atmosphere, see what it's like, and then maybe donate that money to charity. Just an idea. It might be a terrible idea. And owners and, front offices might be like, listen to that dumbass, what he's suggesting. We give that money away. But I think that would be a gesture of really goodwill for the NFL. It is not a great product they're putting out there, but let the little kids in. Let give those tickets out to a Boys and Girls Club or whatever it might be.
Yeah, because remember, you've got like 190 players on your roster.
Yeah, right.
Have them sign autographs and meet the fans.
Exactly.
Even though half of you aren't going to be there in a couple of weeks here, it would be a good community outreach kind of thing.
I agree. And I bet the players would love that too,
For sure.
because and the main guys aren't going to play. You're not going to see Myles Garrett playing out there, especially in this.
Why? Why would you?
Why would you put him at risk in a game that doesn't matter?
Can you imagine preseason game? You go down for a season-ending injury. That would be dumb financially.
It would be horribly, not just financially, but like it would sink your season if you lose one of your best players. So that actually brings up a good point. Kevin Stefanski said Deshaun Watson would play this coming Saturday in Seattle. Now, here's another dumbass thing the NFL did. The NFL is so smart, so genius, but they've done some dumb stuff over the years. This is one of them. The Browns play a 10 o'clock kickoff Eastern time with the Seattle Seahawks. They travel all the way out to Seattle, all the way across the country on the West Coast, kickoff at 10 p.m. So that game will be on, I don't know if it's on CBS or whatever locally, or ABC, but it's like 10 o'clock. The Browns aren't going to play a game kicking off at 10 o'clock Eastern all season long, maybe 8 o'clock Eastern. But the preseason, what I think it's valuable for is maybe to have those guys get in their uniforms, go through the pregame ritual, and then would you put your best players out there for 1 or 2 series to get them in rhythm before you go out week 1?
I would wait until not first quarter. I would put them out in the fourth quarter, because think about it, like they're going to rotate things out. You're going to be seeing second and third string players, and they still go through their rhythms. They still go through their, you got the hardcore in the first quarter. Like people are going to be hitting hard and whatever. So I think your chance of injury goes down as the game goes on.
That's an interesting take I've never heard anyone say. Because you're playing almost best on worst then.
Yes.
But those guys might be fighting for a roster spot on Seattle, and you're putting your best out there theoretically
against tired players who've been in there for 3 quarters.
That's an interesting take. I don't think we'll see that ever. But that's not I don't know. Some people might say that's a terrible take. Some people might say that's a great take.
Like if you have your second stringer that you're kind of like feeling out whether or not they have it.
Yeah.
You start them early in the game to go through the normal beginning of game. Your veterans have been there for so many seasons. They don't need the opening game, knock the rust off kind of stuff. Okay. So yes, you should play Deshaun.
Yeah.
Yes, you should have Chubb. Yes, you should have all your ones, but just slide it later in the game.
I've heard some crazy things about Nick Chubb. Like he is not expected to be back. Some people said it till like late in the season. I've heard some people say, now he's still on the PUP list, so physically unable to perform list, but people say in practice he is sprinting full speed. He is making cuts left and right. I would not put money on him being out there week 1, but I would not bet against Nick Chubb either to not be out there. I have not heard anything otherwise, but that will be very interesting to see.
So I'm the offensive coordinator. I'm like really picking specific plays to put him out there just to get him back in the team again.
And like, I mean, he suffered a catastrophic injury, just about a year ago.
Just not against Pittsburgh. Like, he's not playing that game again.
Yeah. Maybe we agree that Minkah Fitzpatrick for Pittsburgh is not allowed to play, and we will sit Nick Chubb out that game. We'll call that a fair trade.
Do you think that that we're going to see a Jameis Winston opening here rather than?
No, I think Deshaun Watson's going to start.
Okay.
I really do. Here's my concern, though, and I want to put this graphic up, and I want your opinion on this, because the Browns are not whole on the offensive line.
Yeah.
So
sure.
in the center,
Jack Conklin.
I know
I hate seeing that.
the middle of the line is pretty much solidified right now. Ethan Posick is your starting center. Your right guard is Wyatt Teller. Your left guard is future Hall of Famer Joel Bitonio. Now, I don't think Joel Bitonio plays because he's getting up there in age, but he is still a great player. It's like one of those players you want. He's had enough reps. He knows what he's doing. Probably the same thing with Posick and Teller. But your middle of your line is solidified. Jed Wills has been out since like early December. Jack Conklin has been out since like week 2 or week 3 of last year. So I don't know what they're doing at tackle right now. Now, apparently, they both were going through individual drills finally at practice last week. But your backup left tackle, James Hudson, right now is questionable.
I'm cool with Hudson, but
DeJuan Jones will be a starter. He is so good, and he is a giant of a man. He's like 6'8", 360 or 70 pounds, but he can move too. So I think DeJuan Jones is probably going to slide into your right tackle spot. And then the Browns are probably hoping Jack Conklin or Jed Wills gets healthy and can slide into that left tackle spot. Because if they don't, I'm thinking maybe like Zach Zinter slides into one of your guard spots, and then you bump out Joel Bitonio for a game or two until those guys get healthy.
Do you finally cut the Jack Conklin contract? He's just not reliable enough.
So he has not played a full season in a few years. He was like the number 8 pick of the draft, probably like 8 or 9 years ago. And he is one of the best tackles in the league when healthy. But like you said, he's not reliable. Especially lately. He re-signed with Cleveland like I think it was last summer on like a deal, but I don't know how much of that's guaranteed money. I don't know how much of that the Browns have to eat. So it's like if you cut him, do you still have to pay him, like is that still going to go against your cap, like X amount of dollars? So I don't know what the answer to that is. But I think you got to just hope for the best this year. I think the Browns are pretty much all in this year with their roster. You got, if your quarterback position is answered, let's just say Deshaun Watson plays average quarterback this year, like average to maybe slightly above average. If he's in the 12 to 15 spot, then you have a pretty solid O-line. You got a good running back situation. You got good wide receivers. You got one of the best tight ends in the league. Your defense is outstanding. So the Browns don't have a ton of holes on their roster. So I think the Browns, and they know more than we do. Obviously, they're seeing these guys day in and day out. But whatever is going to happen, you got to protect your quarterback at all costs. A quarterback that's coming off an injury of his own, which knocked him out for the rest of the season. Now, I personally like Jameis Winston more than I like Joe Flacco. And I know people love Joe Flacco, but I think the Browns have a good quarterback spot this year, because if Jameis Winston had to go in for a week or a month, I think he can get the job done. And he's pretty much the same quarterback as Joe Flacco. He takes a lot of chances, but he's fairly accurate. He's a good deep ball thrower. But he's prone to make mistakes as well, just like Joe Flacco was. So
high touchdown, high turnover.
Exactly. The 1 year with the Saints, he led the league, or Tampa, he led the league in touchdowns and interceptions. It was like he had like 35 touchdowns and like 25 interceptions.
So look for Jameis Winston to protect Jack Conklin on that side, right? He'll hit the blocks, keep that guy safe on his left side.
Exactly. So we will see.
And I shit talk Jack Conklin all the time, and it's not his ability. I think he's a talented guy.
Yeah.
He just has to stay on the field.
Yeah, exactly. And my bigger pet peeve is with Jed Wills, who was like the number 8 or 10 pick in the draft. He is now on his rookie contract. He should be motivated to get out there because the Browns picked up his 5th-year option. So next year, he could be, if he plays out and like shows out and balls out this year, he could be a $15 million to $20 million a year guy. If he sucks, he's still going to get picked up by somebody, but that might cost him 10 to 12 million a year based on the way he plays this season. On if another team's going to give him a contract, he's entering the final year of his contract. So we'll see what happens.
So let me give you 5 or 6 elements to this, and you tell me where the biggest vulnerability.
Sure.
Linebackers, defensive backs, running game, wide receivers, tight end, or quarterback.
Biggest liability? All right. I'm going to still say number 1 quarterback because that's the most important position on the field. So if I have to go past that, I'm not concerned about the running game because that generally is infused with the O-line. So if the O-line is okay, I think the running game will be okay. I will say the wide receivers I think are fine. And you said defensive backs are to me. Perfect. I think they're, as long as Denzel Ward doesn't keep getting concussions, I think he's fine.
And Emerson is
Emerson might be the best corner on the team. And Denzel Ward was ranked as the 2nd best corner in the league based on his peers.
But we said early on, linebackers need to stay healthy and they need to be there.
And that's not the case right now. So linebackers are definitely an issue. But to me, your defensive line is so good and your secondary is so good that can kind of make up for maybe not a great linebacking core. But you do have JOK. You do have the guy you brought over from Minnesota. His name's escaping me right now, but he is going to be your middle linebacker. But he's been banged up of late. Tony Fields is in there. You got the rookie out of Mississippi State that's in there. So linebacker will be a concern this year.
So offensive line, linebackers are definitely something that you want to keep an eye on.
Yes, for sure. Going forward.
And maybe quarterback.
But if Deshaun Watson can just play to his ability, well, his ability should be actually a top 5 to 7 quarterback. But let's just say, let me just actually show you this. So here's what I think of the top quarterbacks are. I have Deshaun Watson as the 19th best quarterback. And look who number 18 is, Baker Mayfield. So Mahomes obviously won, but like you go through the list and it's like, could Deshaun Watson be better than Joe Burrow on any given day? Yeah, he could. Could he be better than Jordan Love, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Aaron Rodgers, Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford, Tua, Kirk Cousins, Trevor Lawrence, Kyler Murray? He could be, or Baker. He could be better than any of those given quarterbacks on any given day.
Is Aaron Rodgers the ayahuasca Aaron Rodgers or the pre-ayahuasca?
I think in season he's no ayahuasca.
Okay,
I think so Aaron Rodgers he played 4 snaps last year, 3 snaps. So he hasn't played football in a year and a half, 2 years. So we'll see. And I think Aaron Rodgers is like 39. So we'll see how that goes. And he doesn't have to worry about being RFK's running mate or worrying about dead bears in Central Park.
But he may be picking flowers in the infield.
Yes. He may be doing that. But he's got a good team around him. So we'll see. But, I mean, is it too much to ask Deshaun Watson to be better than Trevor Lawrence and Kirk Cousins and Tua? I don't think it is. I think Deshaun Watson, at worst, like this is coming into this year, I would think he'd be the 19th best quarterback in the league. Is it too much to ask him to be top 13? I don't think it is. So that to me is, give me Deshaun Watson. Give me Deshaun Watson above average from what he's been the last couple of years. I know it's not been good. I know he's been injured. I know the media circus off the field. But if you give me an above average above league average Deshaun Watson with the Browns offense and that defense, I think you're going to see good things out of the Browns this year and another playoff appearance. So what say you?
All right. So I just want to question for you about quarterbacks. So do you think like the quarterback room is Deshaun, then Winston, and then DTR? And do you think we carry DTR into the season, or do you think he's trade capital?
That's actually a great question. Because Tyler Huntley is the fourth guy. Tyler Huntley is a guy that, pretty much played half a season for Baltimore 2 years ago and like took them to the helped them get to the playoffs. I think that would be a pretty strong third. And if you can get an asset, like today they traded Cade York for like a 7th round pick, but they brought Cade York back for nothing. So they get a free draft pick for him. So if you can trade, I would be more willing to trade Tyler Huntley over DTR. I think DTR might get you a bigger haul back. You're not going to get a top, like a first, second, or third for him. You might get a 4th or 5th at best. If you get a 4th or 5th for DTR, I might take it, because then you still got a solid third in Tyler Huntley. I think the Browns are going to carry 3 quarterbacks on their roster. So I don't know. Like I would say if you don't entertain a trade, you probably cutting Tyler Huntley and bringing DTR as your third quarterback.
I'd like to see that scenario, because if they don't get a good deal for him, I would not, like 5th round would probably be the minimum that I would take.
Yeah, and that's what they took him in like 2 years ago. So it's like, hopefully you can turn that asset into something better than you actually
drafted. But I really want to see what he becomes. Like I really do.
I don't think he's going to be your future starter in Cleveland, but could he be a great backup quarterback? I think that's a very good possibility.
My only fear is that his being thrown into the mix so early the first season that he was there, I think confidence was eroded a little bit. I think he was really good in preseason. He really showed that he had some magic, but man, when you lose like that and it's embarrassing, I don't know how you bounce back from that.
So I think he started 3 games last year. I remember he beat Pittsburgh. That was a low scoring. It was like 16-13 when DTR started. And that was the game after Baltimore, after Deshaun Watson got hurt. And the Browns were just like, he got thrown into the fire.
For sure.
So he came out, won that game. He was balling after in pregame or post-game interview, if I remember right. And then he went into Denver. If you remember last year, they went into Denver and they actually lost that game. But it was like a 3-point game when he got hurt. I think he got knocked out with a concussion, and then
there were like 3 interceptions during that game. Right?
Yeah, he did not do well. And then they brought in his name I've blocked out of my memory, but they brought in the other guy who started too mmany games last year for them. And
was it Brandon Whedon?
No. Was it Johnny Manziel? His name's escaping me. Horn number 10. But he played okay at times last year. But DTR, I think, has a nice future potential, not as a starting quarterback, but as one of the best backups in the NFL, potentially. So, and maybe he'll prove me wrong and become a starter somewhere. But let's hopefully we bring him along and can use him as an asset going forward.
So you think, let's just say that Deshaun Watson, too bad of injury, doesn't end up starting the season, that
he's starting the season.
Well, let's just say he has an early exit.
Okay, let's hope not, because the season's gone.
Is Winston equal to Flacco?
Yeah. Okay. I think Jameis Winston actually is better than Joe Flacco. And now I'm going to take some heat for saying that, because there's a lot of people that love Joe Flacco for what he did last year. But could you imagine? And I've said this before. Could you imagine if Deshaun Watson played in that playoff game last year? It was a 3-point game and he threw back-to-back pick sixes. Mm-hmm. Could you imagine that? Like Deshaun Watson would never be able to live that down. Joe Flacco threw back-to-back pick sixes against the Houston Texans when it was a 3-point game. And that was the end of the season. It was over. Now the defense stunk that game, but Houston put up 45 points, but if you take away 14 of those, 31, the Browns could have got there because they were driving, and then that's when Flacco threw the first one. But Jameis Winston, excuse me, they are, and I know people don't generally compare black quarterbacks and white quarterbacks, but they are literally the same prototypical quarterback. Big body, big arm guy that, take some chances. Jameis Winston is going to take some chances, just like Joe Flacco did. Now, if you remember that one pass last year against the Bears when Flacco hit Amari Cooper and took it down the sideline, and threaded it in between three people, that's a chance. And that's the risk reward you run with a quarterback like that. There are some times where it might be an interception, but there's also some times where that turns into a very long touchdown. So I tend to think with the Browns defense the way it is, that you want someone safer that moves the chains, that will occasionally take the big shot and not take the big risks. Now, Deshaun Watson has made some big time mistakes over the last 2 years. First play against the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday Night Football, pick 6. First play against the Baltimore Ravens in that game where they came back and won, pick 6. So it's he's mistake prone too. But if you give me the normal, average Deshaun Watson that's not going to make a ton of mistakes, take me back. I know we're not going to go into the way back machine of possibly MVP of 2019, 2020, but you just give me the baseline NFL level where he will do his part, move the chains, and be a good runner, be a good passer, be efficient. I think the Browns are in a great position this year. So
I don't have a lot of faith in Deshaun Watson. I think, a lot of Browns fans feel like we overinvested in this dude.
There's no doubt.
We traded our testicles for a candy bar and we lost. So how many years of contract do we have before we could just say?
So he's entering he's entering his 3rd year.
Okay.
So I believe there's, whatever that divides out to, I think it was $45 million a year, which actually compared to some quarterbacks looks like a bargain now. Trevor Lawrence is going to be making almost $60 million a year. That's ridiculous. But if you look at Deshaun Watson,
he's got perfect hair. I mean, I don't know why you don't want to pay up for the.
Well, let Head and Shoulders pay him for the hair.
I think it's Brill. Is that the shampoo that?
But whatever it might be, Deshaun Watson, yes, you've invested a ton, the draft capital, the actual financials, but what he gave you a glimpse of in that Baltimore game. And let's keep in mind, he was 6-1 or 5-1 as a starter last year. I think you can take away that Colts game. So really 4-1 as a starter, but and the season before that, I think he was 3-3. So 7-4 as a starter overall, not terrible. Did it look pretty at time? Or it didn't look pretty almost hardly at all, but there were some games that he gritted out and won. And I know he will never get that pass from the fans because of the off-field stuff. I totally understand that, and I can respect that. But
so when we end this era and we move on, and we I don't
think the Browns want to move on.
No.
I think they want to see him perform on the field. Now, you could theoretically move off his contract after this year and trade him for whatever it might be, but you still owe him a lot of money, and there'll probably be some dead cap that you have to eat with that trade. But I think the Browns don't want that. They want him to be in the orange and brown. They want him to perform, and they want him to get the job done because they know that is their best chance of taking the Cleveland Browns, an organization that has never been to the Super Bowl. They've won tons of titles, but they've never been to the Super Bowl. That is their best chance to get there. With him playing well.
I still got some MySpace stock, and I keep poking it, and I want to force it to come through for me, and that is Deshaun Watson. It's dead. It's dead. He's not ever going to be the same quarterback he was with the Texans. And I'm not
asking him to be. I'm asking him to be an above average NFL quarterback. I'm talking Katie Moon, she gets over the high bar. I'm talking, let's go back to where the bar is set. Only half of the people can get over that bar. when it's the first set. Just give me that. Get me over that first bar, and then let your skill players, let your offensive line, let your running backs, and let your defense carry you, and just be above average.
But he doesn't have just above average costs to the cap. Like,
well,
he needs to perform way above.
I push back on that because look, he's not even in the top 10 of NFL salaries per year right now. Now this year, based on like, I think the first year they brought him in because they were anticipating a suspension. They made his base salary like $1 million and gave him a bonus of like 45 million because I think it's 46 million a year. So that got like pushed down the line a little bit.
Think of the players that we didn't get to draft because that's the part that
you can't live in that world anymore. Though.
I do, man.
Yeah, I know, but like
that's why I'm mad.
Hypothetically, you can say, oh, this and this and this. It's like, okay, but that time is over. So unless you have a time machine and we go back, Deshaun Watson is your best chance for the Browns to get to the Super Bowl. If you're a Browns fan, you might hate Deshaun Watson, but you have to root for him and the team to perform at their best to get to the Super Bowl. I understand that's not a kosher topic for a lot of people, but you might love him, you might hate him, you might be somewhere in between. I'm kind of somewhere in between with him, but it is what it is at this point. So
I will be the happiest fan in the world if he comes out and performs for 16 games or however many
17.
It is.
Let's get through all 17.
17.
I will say 16 is fine though.
If he gives me a performance in each one of those, even if it's like what's your prediction for the season? I know it's early, but what would make you satisfied? Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, and you go 10-7. 11-6, like
sure.
what's your minimum?
All right. Well, I think the Browns, if they are hitting on all cylinders, are an 11-6 team. Okay. That's my prediction. But if he's injured or underperforming, I think the Browns are somewhere between an 8-win team and a 12-win team. I think if they're hitting on all cylinders, 11, they have a tough schedule. They have a very tough schedule, but I don't think 11 or 12 wins is out of question. If they're like, they have a good enough team though. If they're still struggling, they're still going to win some games. This is one of the best rosters in the NFL. You look up and down this roster, the Browns have probably a top 5 roster. Now they have some questions at left tackle right now. They have some questions at the quarterback position. But let me just put it this way. If Deshaun Watson didn't have any of the off the field issues and was just an average quarterback, just like, let's say you put Kirk Cousins in there, would you feel better about the Browns coming into the season?
Yeah, the roster would carry it.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. So let's just say Deshaun Watson is Kirk Cousins this year. Is that good enough for you?
See it your way.
Okay.
I see it.
Okay. So that's the way I'm gonna just.
And that's why you've taken your standards down, and he doesn't have to be an overperformer because he has a team that could support and make, sort of like meh into something greater.
All right. So, you asked me about win totals. I'm gonna give you what I think will be the best teams in the league and the worst teams in the league. I went through every NFL team, all 32. And I just was like, here's the record. I did the schedule game and did the record with all of them. I will put that on right now, but I only have 2 teams. Oh, first of all, I have 18 teams over 500, 14 teams under 500 this year. So my top 2 teams, I have the defending Super Bowl teams in at the 12 win mark. Kansas City and San Francisco, I have them both 12-5. I don't think there's going to be this dominant team this year that wins 13, 14, 15 games. I think 12 wins is probably, we might see a team get to 13, but those are the only 2 teams I see as being the best 2 teams roster-wise in the NFL at 12 wins. I have the Buffalo Bills, Cleveland Browns, Philadelphia Eagles, Detroit Lions, Atlanta Falcons, and Houston Texans all at 11 wins this year. At 10 wins, I have the New York Jets, your boy Aaron Rodgers, the Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, Green Bay Packers, and LA Rams all at 10 wins. And then at 9 wins, I have the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jim Harbaugh's Los Angeles Chargers, and Baker Mayfield's Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 9 wins. So I have the Pittsburgh Steelers with 8 wins this year, 8 and 9.
Their quarterbacks situation.
It's going to be interesting. We shall see. But that team is like, it's so hard to bet against that team. Indianapolis, Seattle, and New Orleans at 8 wins. Chicago and Arizona at 7 wins. And then the rest of the league at 6 or less. Minnesota, I don't like their quarterback position. They have a decent roster. Vegas, I'm not sure about. Denver, I think, is not a very good roster.
Fuck John Elway.
Tennessee, the Giants, Washington, I don't think. And I think the 2 worst teams in the league, one in the AFC, I think is the New England Patriots. And I think in the NFC, it is the Carolina Panthers. I think those are the 2 worst teams in the league by far this year, in my opinion. So
Belichick retires.
Yeah, Belichick is gone. He's actually I don't know if he's doing TV or not this year, but I think Carolina and New England are going to be fighting for the number 1 draft pick for next year's draft. So I was going to put out all my predictions for each conference. I'm not going to, or for each division in each conference. I'm not going to do that today. I'll post that on our social media, but I will put out the AFC North. And here's what I think the records are. I think the Browns, now I'm going to get some hate for this because people are going to call me a homer, and that's fine, whatever. But I think the Browns, if they just do what they did last year, the defense maybe improves a little bit in the red zone. The defense probably will take a little bit of a step back, but I think the offense also improves. I think you're going to see Nick Chubb get back into the backfield probably by week 4 or 5. And I think the Browns are going to have more of a high profile offense this year that caters to Deshaun Watson. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot more. And then when Nick Chubb gets back, I think they're going to start running it a little bit more of a balance. So I think the Browns, with that defense and an improved offense, go 11-6. I think Baltimore and Cincinnati are right there with them. Baltimore lost a lot of stuff in the offseason. I have them at 10-7. Cincinnati, if Joe Burrow stays healthy, I think their offense is still good enough to go 10-7. And I did it, Joe. I put the Steelers out there at 8-9. I'm calling my shot that the Pittsburgh Steelers, first time in 18 years of Mike Tomlin, I think this is the first year they go under 500 and go 8-9. They just miss it. And I think they're 8-8 going into whatever the last game of the year is, and they lose it. And Mike Tomlin drops to his first losing record. So
even though they threw off coaching staff, they're playing the same conservative, no risk ball that they did last year. So no improvement.
So I think those are the best teams I think the AFC North, is the best division in all of football. Here's my AFC playoff picks. Buffalo in the East, Kansas City in the West. I think that's pretty obvious. I think the Texans are a pretty good shot in the South. I'm going to go with the Browns in the North. I think it's going to be a 3-horse race till the end with Baltimore, Cincinnati, and Cleveland. And then, but I'm going to have the Browns taking it. They have not won the division, as most people will make fun of them for, since like 1989. I think Baltimore gets in the wild card spot. I think the Jets, if Rodgers stays healthy, gets into a wild card spot. And I think the Dolphins. So the AFC East, I have three teams making the playoffs. I have 2 AFC North teams making the playoffs. And I had the Cincinnati Bengals also going 10-7, but just missing out. I don't know how it's all going to play out, but those are my 7 teams in the AFC I have making the playoffs. Any disagreements or?
No, I'm glad to see the Jets up on that on the screen as a wild card. That's going out there a little bit.
It is. I think their roster is pretty good. I think they have a good offense, a pretty decent defense. It's all about that quarterback position. So he can stay off the ayahuasca during the season, and we'll see. So
It's a whole different team with him at the helm.
it really is. All right, NFC, real quick. Here's my NFC predictions. I have the Detroit Lions winning the North. I have the San Francisco 49ers winning the West. The Philadelphia Eagles bouncing back and winning the East. I have the Atlanta Falcons coming out of the South. I think the Atlanta Falcons are going to have a nice year. Green Bay, Dallas, and the LA Rams all as the wild card teams. That is just my prediction. Obviously, I could be wrong. I feel like every year I'm pretty good at hitting about 4 out of 7 of these, and then sometimes 5 out of 7. But there's always some of those teams that you just can't predict, or injuries that throw it off. So
yeah, this early on in the season, like it's really a crapshoot. Like you're using data that is so incomplete.
Yeah,
it's tough to tell what happened.
It is. So looking at last season versus this season, the only 2 teams that I have out of the playoffs that made the playoffs last year are Tampa Bay and Pittsburgh. And in their place, I have the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets. And then I have just missing the playoffs, the Cincinnati Bengals and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Those are kind of my overall thoughts on that. So,
my most unfavorite part of this season is when they have to trim the roster down to 53 or whatever.
Yes.
Because I see some names on there that you see did really well during the preseason. And you're like, man, I know they're going to go to the practice squad, but that's where people go to die.
Hey, they still get a paycheck though.
They still
get a paycheck. I'm hoping for former guest of the show, Bryce Oliver. He's doing really well with the Tennessee Titans at wide receiver. Hopefully he can make the team, and we'll see. RJ Johnson's down with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, former O lineman of the Youngstown State Penguins. So we hope for them, and we'll keep tabs on them. Couple really quick thoughts. I know we got to go here, but there's an upcoming biopic about John Madden that will be out. Nick Cage is playing John Madden. Do you see any comparison?
So from what I saw, Nick Cage put on some weight.
Oh,
so
he's a method actor.
He's a method actor.
Or he's just eating a lot.
He likes chicken.
Okay. So thoughts on that?
I don't see it.
I don't see it at all.
Types and I mean, he's a great actor, so maybe he pulls it off.
All right. Can I close out with one? Well, it's kind of
so okay. Well, let me interrupt you.
Yeah, no, please.
Live or dead? It doesn't matter who would be the perfect John Madden stand-in?
How about what's his name? He was on Roseanne.
I knew you were talking about. I could picture
John Goodman.
Goodman.
What about John Goodman? I think he'd be pretty good.
John Candy. These Johns.
John Candy's dead. John.
I know. I said live or dead.
I said live or dead. Sorry, I missed him.
Yeah.
You did say that.
So John Candy would be. I'm just looking at tubby guys.
Yeah. And he's like Chris Farley.
Oh, could you imagine a Chris Farley?
Chris Farley would have been good. That would have been real good.
Do you want to update your pick now that you realize that I said dead?
No, I'm gonna stick with John Goodman. I think it's a pretty good pick. Rest in peace, John Candy. I love that guy. He was so good. What's your favorite John Candy movie? You have one?
I don't. Can't think of
Uncle Buck. He was in Home Alone, but he only played a minor character there. Uncle Buck's probably Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Oh, yeah. That one. That's what I'd go with. So, all right. Can I end this with since the summer's almost done, with 3 really dumb things I've done this summer?
Go for it. I can't wait to hear.
This is like.
Do I have to come up with 3 too?
No.
Okay,
well, if you have any, you can. Feel free to
figure I'll put my part on judging you by the 3 things.
So there are I've accumulated. It's been like once a month, so I've done like one really dumb thing every month. So, I'm gonna put this up here, and I'm gonna explain them as I go. So just some of those random moments in life that don't go your way. 1, a poor handshake. So I'm going to start with the poor handshake story. So I'm going to just say her first name, but I go to one of my financial advisors. Her name is Elizabeth. She is a wonderful person, great girl, but I sat with her for about 30 minutes and did did the financial stuff, like buy this, sell that, whatever, hold tight on this, whatever it might be. And then the meeting's closing. So people know me. I'm a coffee drinker. This meeting was at like 8:30 or 9 in the morning. So I'm drinking my coffee, and it's basically almost gone. There's like this much left. So I titled this a poor handshake because at the end of the meeting, we stand up and we're about to leave, and she goes to shake my hand. My coffee is in my right hand. So when I go to shake her hand, I transfer the coffee and I drop it all over the floor. And there was luckily only about this much, but I was just mortified. I was so embarrassed. Got on the carpet. Luckily the carpet was dark, but that was my first dumbass thing I've done this year.
Okay,
So
the total fumble.
Yeah. So there was that, and she was cool about it, and it was all good. So that was one.
Now, are you a firm grip handshake person?
Oh yeah, like not like where I'm gonna hurt somebody's hand, but you don't want the
fish.
The fish.
Yeah,
no, that's not cool. Yeah,
fish.
give a firm handshake, look someone in the eye. That's the thing to do. So that's one. You ready for number two?
I'm ready.
And I think this has happened to more people.
I love number two.
Number two is called the invisible spider web. So I am walking. My mom watches my kids on Monday and Thursdays. So I drove over to her house and was picking them up after she was watching them. So I'm getting out of my Bronco, and I didn't have doors on my Bronco. So I get out, and then I take a couple steps, and you know how you just like walk into a spider web, but you don't see it? Like, and I did like this. But there was like four. Oh, I have to do it. So you go like this. There's like four people walking or riding their bike in the cul-de-sac at the same time. And I know they saw me, and I look like a total dumbass. So that's my second dumb thing. But I guarantee that's happened to other people before.
It has happened to me.
Okay, perfect. So you can relate.
Well, I don't make it a dramatic scene where I don't push this, because even if it was a spider web, you don't really need to push it away. You could just kind of deal with it.
But there's no way to walk away from that looking cool. It's just like
pretend like it's not hitting you. Like, what's the worst? Do you think that there's a tarantula that's climbing up that web that's going to bite your face?
It's unexpected, and you're just walking into the
You don't
lab
need to swat at it.
So.
There's no danger. Even if it like sprawls across your face as you're walking, it's just like a parachute. It'll slow you down.
Me and you don't react the same to some things, though. So like some things I'm real chill about. That it just like caught me off guard. I was not expecting it.
All right.
So very uncomfortable there. So that's
so really this is the dumbest things.
Well, these are the three things that stood out that I'm sure I've done dumber.
You are very blessed if these are the two things.
Oh, there's one more.
Okay.
There's one more, and this one's probably the most embarrassing.
Okay.
So I'm going to just entitle it Trying to Be Quiet and Failing Miserably. This is probably not going where you think it's going. So
I was thinking farts or something.
No farts. Nope. But has to do with a bathroom trip. So a lot of my family was down in Florida over the summer. So in around the 4th of July time, I can't remember exactly when, but we had my son, who's a year and a half, was sleeping in the other room, and there was a couple other like little kids sleeping, but I really had to pee. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to go in there. And this was the only bathroom like available that I could go into. So I went in, and I'm like, oh man, if I pee, it's going to be really loud. And then, so Joe, I sat down to pee. I'm not going to lie. I sat down to pee because I'm like, I can control the noise level. You hit the bowl and, whatever.
You saw my grid, right? Like there was a...
No. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes.
C5 is where you hit it.
But when it's late at night and you're maybe not like in the fullest mindset, comfortable state, I was like, I'm going to just sit down. It'll be quiet, whatever. So I sat down, and, sometimes when you sit down as a man, there's probably like a lot of, I'm going to probably get made fun of for this already for sitting down, but sometimes at night you just got to sit down because it's quiet and whatever.
You pick your dress up, you keep it off to the side so you don't get anything on.
But so anyway, moving on. So I sit down, and the physics of the way I sat, my my gentleman parts were aimed a certain way. So I start peeing and I'm like, oh, that's warm. I was peeing on my leg, Joe. And then
I see the physics of it.
Don't piss on my leg and tell me it's raining. So yeah. So that was so then I had to get towels and then I, disinfected it and stuff. And that took about 5 minutes. And I ended up probably making way more noise than I would have just peeing and being done with it. So those are 3 of my most embarrassing things that I could think of this summer. I'm sure I've done worse, but any embarrassing moments from the summer? I thought it was good to self-deprecate a little bit here.
Well, everything you mentioned has happened to all of us. So it's not something that you should be ashamed. And I want to make sure that your ego is intact.
Yeah, it's more of a pride thing than anything.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like I can't think of anything that happened. Like all of mine were low level annoyances. Yeah. I mean, there was no sharts. There was no there was no well, I would say the worst that happened was when those awkward fist bump handshakes.
Oh yeah.
Those are
sometimes
dumb.
Somebody, you're going for the fist bump. The guy comes in for a handshake.
I hate the fact that fist bumps are an acceptable way of whatever, but I'm a germaphobe, so I totally embrace the fist bump. But sometimes when it goes fist bump to shake, the back to fist bump, and they do the opposite of it, it takes 20 minutes.
It's awkward. Yeah.
It's really stupid.
Yeah.
But that's the worst.
Yeah.
So both of us are living a blessed life if that's the worst.
That's true. That's true.
You piss on your leg. It's only a moment in time.
And drop a cup of coffee and walk through an invisible spider web.
Do all 3 at the same time and you're fucked.
Now if I tell you some of the worst that's happened, we'll do that on a future show.
Okay.
Because we're running out of time. But I have one story in particular that I still am shaking my head about that today that was unintentionally embarrassing. So, and nothing I did wrong. It was just unintentionally. We'll save that for a future show though. Okay.
Little cliffhanger.
But, yeah, a little cliffhanger. So for Joe, I'm Justin. Want to thank everybody for watching, listening. Make sure to follow Youngstown Studio 330 Sports Show on Facebook and all of our socials. Again, 4-year anniversary. So appreciate you all for watching, listening, all that good stuff. And we will see you next week.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for your support.